Hello, everybody, and welcome to all the 300 worldwide viewers gathered to attending our webcast. Smartphone flagship battle from sensors to modules to image quality, powered by Yole Development, System Plus Consulting, and Dixo Mark. This webcast is supported by iMicronews and the China International Optoelectronic Expo, also called CIOE. I'm Faisal Kamasi, Global Sales Support and Coordination Manager for Yole Group of Company, and I will be your host for this webcast. Before we get started, here are some information on today's webcast. It will last about an hour, during which you have the possibility to submit questions during all the webcast by using the Q&A box. We will answer as many questions as we can today, and for the remaining ones, we will follow up via email. Regarding materials, please note that the presentations are already available and they can be downloaded from the resources list box. Furthermore, this webcast is recorded. You will then receive an email with the link to the recorded webcast tomorrow. Now, I'm pleased to welcome and introduce you to the three speakers of this webcast. Chen Mingjin Leng, Technology and Market Analyst within the Photonics Sensing and Display Division at Yole Development. She will make her presentation on the market technology trends and supply chains of CMOS Image Sensor. Peter Bonanno, Technology and Cost Analysis at System Plus. He will present us the front and rear red, green and blue cameras from the three smartphone market leaders, Samsung, Huawei, and Apple. We will then continue with the presentation of Hervé Makdunsky, Image Science Director from Dixo Mark. His presentation will be about performance of top brands smartphone flagships in terms of camera performance. So now that everyone is introduced, let's start the webcast. Chen Mingjin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Faisal. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my share session. I'm Chen Mingjin Liang, Market Analyst and Yole Development. I'm here to give you a short presentation about the CMOS Image Sensor market insight. For those who don't know our company, we publish hundreds of reports per year, and we also focus on quarterly monitors. We published several CMOS image sensor reports and monitors. Next one is going to release at the beginning of September. Therefore, I will give you a quick insight about the CIS market overview this year, and also the trend behind the general context. So, what is taken into account in our analysis? In the imaging system of mobile, we have the camera module. In the sub-component of the module assembly, there are lens set, illuminator, and also the CMOS image sensor array part. In this presentation, I mainly analysis on the CIS sensor level and also CIS wafer capacity and productions. So, what are the background toward industry since 2019? Let's switch to the market context. At first, the pandemic prompted chip factories to start shutting down early in 2020. The COVID-19 sanitary situation also started a new way of working, home office for adults and for children learning from home. When people began working from home and the children were attending school remotely, it caused a massive spike in PCs, tablets, and consumer electronics. Stay-at-home orders drove a surge in the consumer electronic sales, especially in computing. In the other side, during the past year, the US-China trade tension strengthened the supply chain. Fears of sanctions prompted technical companies in China to stockpile chips and prepare for the worst to protect against the U.S. export restrictions. Meanwhile, there were several environmental issues last year, like the severe winter weather in Texas, which forced the chip makers to shut down their factories. Also, a fire at a Japanese chip-making factory owned by Renesas also worsened the situation, and Taiwan's worst drought in decades add even more pressure to the global chip shortage. So multiple reasons come towards the CIS industry context. So in conclusion, what's the impact did they make in such situation related to the CIS industry? We can see that for 2020, the COVID-19 was only relegated as a background story. While it had a minor effect on demand of the CIS, it probably played a major role in the build-up of semiconductor shortage, which started in the last quarter of 2020 and is still occurring throughout 2021. As for 2021, globally, the demand for chips have a flat end of the 2020, despite the Huawei story and the fear of the shortage became self-fulfilling. Q3 and Q4 2020, the CIS demand was very close to the worldwide capacity limit, while logic wafers come from the same foundry under tight situations like this. And CIS is therefore not immune to the global shortage situation. The possibility for the CIS players to raise output this year will be extremely limited. So, what may go on for next 5 years? As a CIS long-term dynamics, the industry ended 2020 at $20.7 billion revenue, which matching Yole's forecast in the previous report, status of the CIS industry 2020. The CIS industry players achieved a 7.3% year-over-year growth rate, and we estimate that 2021 will get a 5% year-over-year growth and reach $21.7 billion because of the 6% year-over-year growth in shipment, and also the minus 1% decrease in average sale price. For the next 5 years, the CIS market is expected to grow on par with the semiconductor industry, with a CAGR of the 7.2% from 2020 to 2026. Look at the market share. CIS is currently still heavily dominated by mobile applications, but the growth is now greater in the other category, like automotive and other markets. They will tend to be around 28% of the whole market in 2026. If we look furthermore into the CIS sales in mobile compared to the total CIS market sales, the U.S. sanctions on Huawei exacerbate the demand of CIS since the May 2019. Then the disappearance of the main buyer of mobile CIS, Huawei, have strongly affected mobile CIS sales. We could see that, for example, Q1 2021 is lower than Q1 2020 on mobile CIS market, which prove this impact. But meanwhile, it's boosting Samsung and OmniVision, who delivered to the competitor of Huawei, such as Samsung, Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo, especially Xiaomi. If we look into the mobile market dynamics, we could see that from 2019 to 2020, Huawei, Samsung, they all have some minor yearly growth. But when Xiaomi got 70% of growth in mobile sales, So due to Huawei ban, we think Xiaomi is now the main beneficiary, and along with the second-tier players among Oppo, Vivo, and others. So under this background, what are the players who benefit from this contest? Which market grows the most and have the best potential in the future? Let's take a look at this slide. For early quarters of 2021, we have seen the normalization of the situation consequence of the COVID-19 and Huawei ban situation. Sony in 2020 had a 0.3% growth, nearly flat. In 2021, Sony is back to its previous number, but is expecting no growth. In 2020, Samsung was more protected from the market shake-up due to its vertical integration. With a growth of 30% in 2020, it benefits from the rise of Xiaomi because they use some Samsung image sensors in its flagship model. And OmniVision has a nice growth in 2020 for 29%. Its strategy is diversified towards mobile, automotive, and security applications. It benefits mostly from the boost to the security and automotive market. Also, inventory stockpiling may have played some role in this growth pattern. STM microelectronics is in good and stable growth. All semiconductor was in the mixed situation with the result of the composition between good automotive growth and the other decline losses. Galaxy Core is the new high flyer with a growth of 52%. It boosted its sales in 2020. And it was the final round to its IPO. Now on August 9th, 2021, this year, it already on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. So if we look at the market, in 2020, mobile and consumer present around 82% of the whole revenue, when mobile remains 70%. And new applications for consumer include AR, VR wearable applications, home IoT products provide new increases, but still, the consumer photography, digital still camera, and digital single lens reflex camera, action camera, drone camera, etc., is on a downward slope. But we think this year could be better. The smartphone market will keep on asking for more diversified cameras, nurturing a large ecosystem of companies. As a market leader, Sony will mainly benefit from this. The small pixel rays have recognized to the benefit of Samsung and OmniVision, or other segmentations like computing, automotive, medical, security, industry, and defense aerospace. They are all participate of the CIS market average growth. Sensing will become more important, and the structure which technology are offered, it will become the key to accessing the emerging market. And in general, CIS currently present 4.7% of the global semiconductor revenue. And also, it is a key semiconductor segmented for mainland China, the largest capitalizations. We can see that CIS presents 13% of Chinese semiconductor products, while the significance of the mainland China semiconductor industry, now it reached 6.8% of the global semiconductor output. So in 2019 to 2020, among the Chinese main semiconductor players, there are 4 players mainly on CIS. Wilsemi is primarily a fabless CIS semiconductor company. It has around 70% of its revenue come from the OmniVision CIS product. The main Chinese players have grown significantly with year-of-year growth about 26% in respect to the CIS in general, which grew 7.3% in 2020. So the CIS players and foundries in mainland China have accelerated growth in the last 2 years. CIS is therefore a significant share of the domestic semiconductor sector and contribute to the growing share of Chinese semiconductor industry on the global sense. The next step for the China-based CIS industry will be the extension of domestic foundry capacity such as CIS stacking. The trade war tension leading to Huawei ban, but also Hikvision, Dahua, Magvi since time have had a direct impact to the dynamic Chinese based on imaging ecosystem. The short-term consequence has been an inbound of orders. On the longer term, it is yet to be seen if the upward dynamics will sustain. So, what will be the next technology for CIS? From the disruption theory of Christensen, Harvard, there might be two big trends for CIS industry. One is quantum single photon techno, another is hyperspectral techno, which record a high-end incremental innovation. In this case, it's kind of a sustainable innovation just because they will address very high-end applications. The quantum techno like DTOF, etc., they need more data. But on the other hand, another approach which needs sparse data will believe this kind of technology like neuromorphic and event-based techno will serve low-end applications. That's why we think it's low-end disruptions. So among the players we have today, like Teledyne is focused on high-end innovation. When Sony, Samsung, and OmniVision, they are targeting now on the low-end but higher volume innovation. Onsemi is gradually focused on automotive and industry, so maybe it's double-sided in the future. On conclusion, the future has many promise, and the increasing use of CIS for sensing purpose is a major trend that it presents 7% share. So we expected that will be double by 2026. So thanks a lot for your listening. Hope you enjoy my presentation and wish you to enjoy the rest of our webcast.
Thank you very much, Jen, for your very interesting presentation. Let's now welcome our next speaker from System Plus Consulting, Peter Bonanno.
Thank you, Faisal. Hello, everyone. Where Chen talked marketing conditions, trends, and players, and where the DxOMark team will talk performance, I'm going to use my time to introduce some of the relevant technologies and some of the costs and trade-offs that drove the design choices in the flagships. More specifically, I intend to cover 3 topics. First, image sensor trade-offs and how each flagship navigated this problem. Second, I'll present Apple's sensor shift system, specifically the manufacturing technology and costs. And finally, I'll discuss the use of periscopic folded camera modules for achieving high zooms. I'll be restricting myself to the 3 market leaders, Apple, Huawei, and Samsung. Now, these aren't necessarily the latest flagships, but because our work is based on physical analysis of the hardware, I can only really talk about phones that we've been able to get our hands on, take apart. We have been inside the Galaxy S21 Ultra, and I'll show some of what we found. But when comparing design strategies by the 3 different companies, I'm going to stick with the S20 Ultra. It's from the same generation as the other 2, and so that comparison would reveal more about each brand's design strategy. So I'll get started. The first topic is CMOS image sensors. I want to show what determines cost, and then what I think are the most important trade-offs that the camera designer will consider when finally making choices about what goes into their flagships. So here's a figure showing the sensor die size and manufacturing costs for all of the sensors, the visible light sensors, RGB, in the 3 flagships. Now, there's a whole range of different technologies which are represented in this plot. There's 3 different pixel technologies. There's a range of pixel sizes, sophisticated AI circuits. One of them even has an integrated DRAM chip. But you wouldn't guess at that variety by looking at the cost, right? Because really, the single most important factor in cost is the die's size. As far as cost goes, you can pretty safely ignore just about everything else. So if you're a smartphone camera designer, yeah, you'll choose the right technology for the job, and you'll choose it knowing that it's not really going to affect your cost. So the primary trade-off that I want to talk about today is that between resolution, pixel size, and die size, which determines the cost. So high resolution is good. We want lots of information for our algorithms. Large pixels are good. We want to collect more light and faster. But here's the catch. If you go large pixels and high resolution, you're going to have a large, expensive die. So this is the main trade-off problem that designers are looking at when they're choosing image sensors. For your dollar, do you want more information or higher quality information? Maybe you want to splurge, do both on a main sensor, and then be more selective for some of the secondary sensors. So for this discussion, I made this sort of resolution pixel size coordinate space on the right. The dollar signs show how cost goes up as you move further away from the origin. So things are very inexpensive if you have small pixels, low resolution, and then most expensive when you go the opposite way. So let's see what our flagship designers went with here. Here I've put all of the image sensors in our trade-off coordinate system. The first thing we notice is that the flagships definitely respect this trade-off. There are no sensors in the top right quadrant. The main sensors are closest to the top right quadrant, which means the designers were willing to pay for a good main sensor. Apple went with a very large pixel size and a very low resolution. Samsung went the opposite, and Huawei chose a spot between them. You'll notice that the 2 that didn't go with the large pixels, they tried to compensate a bit by using color filter patterns. They kind of fill in some of the benefits of the larger pixels. So they were very conscious of the compromise they were making when they went for smaller pixels. On the other side of the board, we see the front image sensors, which seem to have gone mostly for small die sizes. It might be because the selfie camera doesn't need as much information because it doesn't do as much. Or it could be that they just want to keep their front camera small so there's more room for the display, right? Interesting to note is Apple's strategy here. They've totally committed to 12 megapixel sensors for all the modules. They've been doing that for a while now. It's a decidedly low-cost strategy, and it allows them to focus on their existing algorithms, which are already optimized for 12 megapixel data. Where it really hurts them is in zoom capacity, and we'll touch on that later. Here's what Samsung did with the S21 Ultra. They essentially retained the same specs as far as pixel size and resolution go on all the sensors except the telephoto. For the telephoto functionality, they split it into 2 modules with 2 10-megapixel sensors. We'll discuss a bit more later when we talk about the periscopic module here. Moving on to Apple's sensor shift technology. I'm sorry to move so fast. There's a lot I want to cover in my time. My focus here will be on how it's made and what are its cost considerations. So I'm actually going to skip over explaining what is optical image stabilization, how sensor shift does it better. These slides will be visible in our YouTube recording if anyone thinks they would benefit. I think a good place to start is here. If you've been following System Plus communications, you've probably already seen this animation showing Apple's flexible printed circuit and how it allows the PCB and the sensor to move. Looking more closely, you can see electric traces and the contact pads on it, and this connects the moving PCB to the rest of the smartphone. What's really amazing about this thing is how simple it is. On the right is a CT scan slice showing the very simple circuit. And when you look in cross-section, you see it's really just a copper circuit on a flexible copper support. Looking even more closely, it's basically just copper and insulating polymer. The flexible arms have the same structure. So the manufacturing is very simple. It's a copper panel, some liquid solder mask, and some lithography steps. So any PCB fab can do it with their existing equipment. We estimate, in fact, that Alps subcontracts it to Taiwanese partners. Because it's so easy to get made, it really doesn't cost a lot. In fact, most of the cost from the sensor shift system is from the increased complexity of assembling the camera module around it. In the end, it's really not that much more expensive than any module with traditional image stabilization. The figure on the right, it breaks down the manufacturing costs of the main camera modules in the 3 flagships. So the green color is essentially the cost related to the censorship system. The analogous costs are highlighted for the other 2 flagships, and yeah, the censorship system, it does add significant costs to the iPhone module, but at the end of the day, it's pretty competitive with the traditional system. The rumor has it Apple will stick with this. So moving on again, I want to talk very briefly about the zoom and periscopic module technology, and then pass it off to the DxOMark team. First of all, how does smartphone zoom work? Smartphones actually simulate zoom by having multiple modules with different focal lengths. The different focal lengths optimize them for collecting information from different focal distances. So the processor then takes all this information and it simulates zoom. So if we want to simulate long zoom with our smartphone camera, we need a telephoto module with a very long focal length to get that faraway information. That means we need a long lens module. But we don't want to do something like this, right? We don't want to add thickness to the phone. Consumers really prefer thinner phones, so the periscopic module. I think everyone knows by now the basic concept. There's a prism, it acts as a 90-degree mirror, and so we can use a very long lens module that goes along the back of the phone and doesn't actually add any thickness. Because of the very long shooting distance, the optical image stabilization and the autofocus correction are actually very critical, so they have to be part of the system, and they're implemented by rotating the prism and sliding the lens module around. So all this makes for a fairly complex little machine. Here's a little teardown. The prism module and the lens modules are shown removed. They actually have a bunch of magnets embedded in them, and they get pulled around by all of these coils, tracked by all these Hall sensors. And so the periscopic modules are really not cheap to make. But camera designers looking for a high zoom, they do often find them useful, especially in these modern flagships. Here's a table showing the zoom design choices for our 3 flagships. So Samsung and Huawei, they both decided to use periscopic modules. Apple decided not to. The consequences are there in the optical zoom. That's the second row. Huawei and Samsung, they get 4 or 5x zoom to work with, optical zoom, and Apple is just way behind, 2.5x optical zoom. So Samsung had a bit less optical zoom than the Huawei, but because it has more megapixels, they had information for their digital zooming algorithms, and they ended up with a higher total zoom overall. But they sure paid for it, right? The 100x system from Samsung, it costs almost twice as much as Apple's 12x system. So Apple apparently decided that its users are just not that interested in high zooms. Huawei, again, they chose a strategy between the two. They get a high optical zoom with their periscope, and then they don't really shell out for increased resolution. So the S21 Ultra comes along, and we see what Samsung is thinking. They want to take the same concept to another level. In fact, Huawei's Mate 40 Pro Plus, they went the same way as well. They use an even larger focal length, which gives them a 10x optical zoom. But this optical zoom, in fact, is such an extremely long focus that they had to add a secondary telephoto module for the interim distances. So the thinking here is that they're paying a premium to make optical zoom a larger component of their simulated zoom, so they don't have to rely so much on digital zoom. They're hoping that'll make for better performance. You'll see the DxOMark benchmarking, and you'll see how that worked out for them. So since I fear I'm already over time, so I'll skip my summary, just hand off my time, keep the webinar rolling. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope this was useful for you. Please enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you. Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much, Peter, for this very interesting presentation. Now let's welcome our last speaker from DxOMark, Hervé Madkudzkinski.
Hello, everyone.
Hervé.
Yes. So this part of the presentation will be an overview of the flagship image performance. So we provide at DxOMark some scores that summarize the overall user experience. And these scores are based on our protocol that are working with different lab solutions, but also perceptual evaluation, and this all evaluation are summarized into scores. We are providing these reports to the industry, but we are also the first resource for dxomark.com, and we are providing all the scoring system and the ranking on the website. So all the scores that we are providing are also based on objective labs with a lot of measurement that we are developing ourselves. And we are also systematically related all these measurements with a real-life test. So for the camera, it will correspond to photo and video that are performed in real-life condition. And we will perform also perceptual evaluation on all this testing in order to make sure that the overall final score will match with real-life user experience. So the purpose of this presentation will be to focus on two very important aspects for image quality. This is the zoom and the HDR capabilities. The report that is performed with Yole and System Plus will address almost all the other topics, but for this time we chose to focus on these two topics. So in the following slide, I will speak about the Samsung S21 Ultra 5G results. This is the Qualcomm version that was used. We also evaluate the Exynos version, which score a slightly lower overall score, but overall the two devices are providing a very similar quality. So here is an overview of the score that the four devices achieved. So we have the iPhone 12 Pro Max that score an overall score of 130. The Huawei Mate 40 Pro Plus score 139. The Samsung S21 Ultra 5G score 123. And the top score is just right now the Mi 11 Ultra from Xiaomi, which score 144. I have to say that there is another device that was launched a few days ago, the P50 Pro, that even exceed the whole score with, I think, 145. So this presentation focuses on these four devices. The thing that is important because it shows clearly the trend of the camera design for this year, but the camera specification evolved significantly. So the device from last year, like the iPhone 12 Pro Max, is supporting 3 camera modules with a LiDAR sensor. The Huawei Mate 40 Pro Plus is providing 4 camera modules. Same thing for the S21 Ultra. The Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra designed something pretty different. I will maybe explain more in detail the camera combination. There is a TOF sensor for almost all the devices, and there is also a color temperature sensor evaluation on the Huawei Mate 40 Pro Plus. The thing that is important on the image quality is that all these sensors are now used to perform good image quality at the end. Then, to provide good image quality, it's also very important to have good ISP capabilities and also good software capabilities. And the chipset that will be provided by this device has also a very strong impact on the final quality of each device. So that's why we are always listing the ISP that are provided by the devices. So one of the first things we can notice on the comparison is the exposure, HDR, and contrast topic. This is one of the key topic for image quality, because overall, if the exposure is not good, the final user will reject the picture. And in fact, it's pretty useless to work on the other topic if you do not provide good quality for this kind of attributes. And on this part of the evaluation, the Huawei Mate 40 Pro Plus is providing something really good. They have some very strong HDR capabilities. And the thing that is really great is that they are able to provide good HDR capabilities while also providing a pretty good level of contrast. So contrast, it's, I think the illustration here provides you some good ideas. Here we have a satisfying contrast. Here the contrast is pretty low. on the Samsung devices and on the Xiaomi Mi11 Ultra. Even if the HDR capabilities are good, the contrast is very low, especially on the face, as you can see here. So the black are not black, and the overall contrast of the scene is missed. One other key finding is the zoom. So there was some very significant improvement on the zoom technology. It's explained by the camera hardware proposition, but it's also explained by a significant improvement of the software capabilities that are providing on such devices. If you look at this comparison, which is provided for a zoom at 3x for the zoom factor, but we could have select another zoom factor. The Huawei is suffering of the camera design. The Apple is suffering of the camera design, of course. The resolution is limited for a strong zoom factor. When the Huawei is providing something really good, Xiaomi also. And surprisingly, the S21 Ultra do not perform as at the same level as the other devices. And we will explain a bit more on the following slides. So here is the key trends for these 4 devices. So at first, as we could see on the System Plus presentation, the main camera and the default mode remains the most popular, remains the mode that will be the more used on the camera. So of course, the main camera is the first priority for every manufacturer. They provide the best sensor on this kind of mode, and they try to improve the overall quality. It's true for the hardware part, but it's also true on the ISP part. The ISP provide more computational power. They provide also some new AI capabilities that enable AI on almost all the image production pipeline that will improve the overall quality. This is something we can see on all devices. This is something that is maybe more evident on iPhone and Huawei device, maybe a bit slightly less on Samsung and Xiaomi Mi11 Ultra. I will explain more in detail later. Then, as I said, there is more zoom. So there is more camera, but there is also more computational solution. Here I am speaking about super resolution algorithms that are more and more efficient, especially on the latest Huawei devices. But I am also speaking about fusion algorithm. Here, to simulate a good zoom quality, the manufacturer needs to fuse different kind of information between the main camera and the TD camera. If you have a main camera at 1x and another TD camera at, let's say, 3x or 5x, if you want to provide the best overall quality for a zoom at 2x, you will need to fuse the 2 camera in order to perform the best image quality for a 2x camera. It means that you need to control both camera live, and it means that you need also to fuse and to use maybe multi-frame stacking solution on both camera. So it means a lot of power consumptions and also a lot of capabilities on the ISP point of view. So the new ISP provided multiple camera control more and more. The new Qualcomm enabled the control of 3 cameras in live, which is very convenient. It's also true on iPhone and iSilicon chipset. And this is something that overall improves significantly the capabilities of zoom on the smartphone industry. Then there is another topic, which is the WYSIWYG capabilities. So to perform a good capture, the final user needs to have a good overview of what will be the final picture on the preview. So if you do not have the right image on the preview, maybe you will miss the shoot. And for the preview, there are some very significant improvements on the sensor technology with the introduction of the Stego HDR, which was already available on the previous iPhone devices, which is now used on almost all the devices. So the Stego HDR provide better HDR capabilities for preview, but also for video. And of course, there is also some dedicated AI technology that enable a better simulation of what will be the final capture on the preview. Here is a graph that summarizes the information capacity of the 4 devices with respect to their camera hardware system. So here you have the ultra-wide angle camera, then you have the main camera, information capacity. And then depending on each devices, you can get some slight variation here. Here we have the introduction of the first TILI. And then here you have the introduction of the second TILI for Huawei and Samsung devices. Here we have the Xiaomi devices, which has a very large sensor and so a very large information capacity for the main camera, which enable to have a longer TILI while keeping a pretty satisfying information capacity level. The core of the hardware design is to maintain a sufficient level of information capacity with respect to your software capabilities. So the idea is at the end to provide good image quality. So if you have good information capacity on the raw domain, of course, it's more easy at the end to provide good image quality. But on the opposite, if you have very good software capabilities, you can also manage to provide very, very good capabilities. Here, it's a graph that tries to summarize the differences between hardware capabilities, which are the bar graph that you can see here, and the final user experience, which is summarized by the score that each devices have for different kind of zoom ratio. So we have in blue, you have 60 millimeters focal length. In orange, you have 80 millimeters, and in green, you have 160 millimeters. So this is 3 different kind of zoom ratio that we are measuring in our DxOMark report. And you have the corresponding score for each devices here with the dotted and the square and the triangle. So overall, here you have the ratio between score, which means the final user experience, and information capacity, which means hardware capabilities. And overall, the 2 key messages are the best zoom devices from a user perspective are provided by Xiaomi and Huawei devices. And then if you want to go more in detail and to also check the software capabilities, you can see that with respect to the hardware information capacity, the Huawei device and the iPhone device are managing to maximize the overall user experience with very good software combination. So let's speak a bit more about the exposure results. This is just a part of the report that we will share. For the exposure, as I said, one of the key challenge is HDR rendering, but there's also a lot of attributes that will be analyzed for this part. For example, the face exposure and the portrait quality is very important from a final user perspective, which means a lot of technology that are needed to provide good rendering for this kind of topic. Face detection becomes more and more important to provide good image quality for portrait. And the face detection is sometimes difficult, especially with challenging condition like a strong backlighting, like illustrated on this slide. On this kind of topic, the Huawei is one of the best devices we have just right now measured because they provide good HDR capabilities, good face detection, and also they are able to maintain good contrast, which is not the case on the other devices. So there's a pretty large gap between current Huawei score, as you can see here, and the others. The iPhone devices is providing pretty good results, while a bit limited by the hardware capabilities on one side, and also some limitation on the HDR rendering, as you can see here. Speaking about video, the Stagger HDR is also providing some interesting feature, and we can expect even better feature on the next year, on the coming years. The Xiaomi M11 Ultra is also providing something very interesting, with also the support of the Stagger HDR for video, but some limitation, as you can see here. To provide this kind of score, we are analyzing a lot of data. We have a lot of lab measurement. For example, we are using a lot of lab setup like that one that enable to measure the bright preservation capability, but also the target exposure. And we are summarizing these results into some very few numbers and scores. We have also a lot of perceptual evaluation on real use case. So here, for example, portrait and also low light shot. For all this comparison, the Huawei is providing very, very good results. Xiaomi is not so far, as it is illustrated here. On low light, this is one of the remaining challenge for exposure. It's still very complicated to provide good target exposure while providing low light ambience and also good HDR capabilities. All these challenges are complicated, and we can still experience some very different kind of trade-off for this kind of lighting condition. So I will go more in detail for the zoom and provide you with maybe more measurement and results for the zoom comparison. Here we have the score. As you can see, the Xiaomi Mi11 Ultra is providing a very high score, 131. The Huawei Mate 40 Pro Plus is providing something very similar. It's also interesting to note that the Huawei P50 Pro Plus, P50 Pro, sorry, is providing also a very good zoom capabilities, while providing an hardware solution that is significantly different. It could be another presentation, maybe later. Here you have the measurement of the resolution that is provided for medium range, which means between a focal range between 70 and 140 millimeters. As you can see, the Xiaomi is providing something really high, something very good for such kind of zoom ratio. Same thing for the Huawei. And here the iPhone is suffering significantly because of the resolution and of the focal of the tele lenses, and the Samsung is surprisingly pretty low. Here, the Samsung devices results are explained mainly by the lack of super resolution and fusion algorithm for various zoom ratio on, for example, medium range zoom. So to provide good image quality, you need to have a good tele lens, but you need also to have very good software capabilities. This is what does the Xiaomi devices. This is what also provide the Huawei devices. And this is not what we measured on the Samsung S21 Ultra. Here is a comparison for medium range. So here you have the measurement, and here you have the crop. And you can easily experience the difference between each devices. We are providing this kind of evaluation for all the lighting conditions, because providing a zoom, a good quality for zoom, means also providing good zoom quality for outdoor, indoor, and also low light conditions. So we are measuring everything, and the score reflects the whole analysis. Here, as you can see, we are also simulating different kind of shooting condition, like tripod and also handheld that will reproduce the real motion. And as you can see here, the Samsung has some problem in order to provide good resolution as long as we are using handheld condition for the medium range. Here, this is the same analysis for long range zoom. So a zoom ratio, a focal between 140 and 200 millimeters. For this kind of zoom ratio, the Huawei is providing the best results. The Samsung is providing something pretty good for bright light condition, but as long as we are using a long zoom ratio for indoor and no light, the score is pretty low. iPhone is also very low, but I mean on purpose because of the hardware design. And then the Xiaomi Mi 11, which has a tele but pretty shorter, maintain a pretty good level of detail for long range zoom ratio. So fusion, just to provide you an illustration of the problem, if the user is using this kind of zoom ratio, of course you will need, if you want to maximize the quality of the final images, you will need to take information from the main camera, but also from the tele camera. So that's why we are speaking about fusion between cameras. So you can use the information that is coming from the tele camera, but you can also use to provide the whole field of view. You will need also to use the information that's providing for the wide camera. So that's why we are calling that fusion. And overall, fusion can lead to some artifact on the border of the picture, because on the border of the picture, you will use the main camera in order to provide the whole field of view. And this kind of artifact is visible on Xiaomi devices, on Huawei devices, and Samsung devices. So that's why we are speaking about fusion. We are pretty sure that all these devices are using such kind of technology, which is overall very interesting for the final user. But at the end, it can lead to some very strong artifacts that are pretty visible on the S21 Ultra. Here it's an example. And as you can see, there is a part with some texture, for example, on the roof. And on the other part, it's totally blurred. The Huawei, with the same kind of technology, is providing something significantly better. The artifact is very limited, and the fusion is working better. So that means that this kind of results are explained by good hardware capabilities, but also very good software capabilities. Here, the super resolution algorithm that is enhancing the capabilities of the first TD is significantly improving the overall image quality for this zoom ratio. So that's all for my slide. There's a lot of attributes that are evaluated on the final report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hervé, for this nice presentation. Following those very interesting presentation, we received a lot of questions today. Let's start the Q&A session now. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can and follow up via email for the remaining ones. So let's start with first question. I guess Chen Mengjing will be for you this question. Why do you think the DTOF technology is not descriptive?
Thank you. Okay, we know that the market disruption related to the applications. So for this technology, it appears they currently make more sense on high-end applications. So does this technology pursuing an incremental and sustaining innovation approach, but this does not forbid the startup to try the low-end disruption approach. So perhaps yes, in the future, in the near future, it could become a disruption technology. Who knows? Yeah, I think perhaps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very clear. Peter, one question for you. Could you talk about Oppo's new zooming periscope?
Oh, very interesting. Well, so the short answer is no, because I can't say a lot about devices I haven't gotten my hands on to take apart. But it would be very cool to have true zoom in a smartphone and not have it be a big monster like the old Samsung zoom. You'd remove a lot of processing needs, processing errors with them, and you wouldn't need so many modules. I would say that the Oppo's idea is actually part of a larger trend. Smartphone manufacturers looking for ways to have single modules do more than one zoom level. Xiaomi came out already with liquid lens. They're able to deform it to adjust the focal distance. Samsung, Huawei have patents for similar concepts. Sony just came out with the new Xperia that has a variable telephoto lens. It's very similar to the Oppo idea, but the normal camera module style, not a periscope. So interesting things on the horizon as far as smartphone zoom hardware.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Hervé, one question for you. From a user perspective, what is the more important, hardware, software, or tuning?
Thank you. I would say the three are important. In fact, as you can see on the results, it's not just by using a lot of hardware, even the best hardware solution, that you will manage to get the best IQ and the best user experience. So it's very important to have a very good combination between hardware, software capabilities, but also tuning and integration.
Thank you, Hervé. Chen, one question for you. Do you think that under the geopolitical situation, the Chinese players will continue use TSMC as foundry? What do you think?
Yes. Even under this situation, the Chinese domestic foundry capacity is growing, but I think still the Chinese players they need TSMC techno and process as foundry, so they will continue to use in the future. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your clarification. Peter, let's jump with you. At the end of the session about sensor shifts, the P40 Pro imager is much more expensive than the Samsung imager, but they are the same size. Can you explain?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, the Huawei sensor is actually like 15% larger, but more importantly, most of this difference is because it's a Sony sensor, not a Samsung sensor. And Sony, for their very advanced sensors, they actually subcontract their high-end logic circuits, so they pay a hefty margin for that service. And that means that if a Sony and a Samsung sensor are the same size, the Sony sensor will more often be the more expensive one.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Peter. Hervé, with respect to professional DSLR, what is the next challenge for smartphone industry?
Yeah, I would say that smartphone industry, the main challenge will be to provide the professional photographer inside the smartphone. The job of the smartphone industry is really challenging, because in fact, overall, you need to provide the final good picture, which means you need to provide the capabilities of the DSLR, but also you need to combine that with very good photographer capabilities. That means provide the real good looking of the final picture.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Another question. We run out of time, but maybe we have time for a last question. Hervé, what about video? Does the smartphone provide the same quality than high-end cameras?
That's a good question. There are some features that are very, very good on smartphone. I am thinking about stabilization capabilities, especially, which are really good and already very high. Once that said, I don't think they can still compete with DSLR capabilities, especially for indoor and low light condition. And then there is another topic that is very nice on DSLR that is not yet available for now on smartphone, or I would say rarely. This is the bokeh, the video bokeh simulation, and maybe we can expect some new features soon on this kind of topic.
Thank you very much. The webcast is now ending. Thank you, Chen Mingjing, Peter, and Hervé for your time and analysis. To everyone, you will receive an email with the link to the recorded session and to the PDF presentation also. Let me remind you that you can find all our reports and monitors on our website, www.high-micronews.com. Finally, we would like to share with you a forum organized by Yole Development and the CROE, in which Yole Development and System Plus Consulting will be presenting the 3D Sensing for Consumer Forum 2021 will happen on September 17th afternoon in Shenzhen, in China, and we will also be available online for the international audience. Click on the link in the slide to find more information. Do not hesitate to contact us if you have additional questions. You can find our contact details on the last slide of the presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. That was a pleasure. Have a good day and take care.